Morning, everybody. Good morning, Caitlin. It's nice to see you. I am very excited to be spending part of the day with everyone talking about the Vermont Academy application for admission and applying to independent schools in general. I'm really excited to see the questions start to come in. They are all things that we will be talking about in this presentation. So as we go, please don't hesitate to add more of them. I'm also happy to be joined by my colleague, Caitlin Wilkins. We both work in admissions, but we also have many roles at Vermont Academy. And I think it's nice to kind of share from the start the ways in which we engage with our students and our community at large. So Ms. Wilkins, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do outside of admissions?
Certainly, yeah. Oh my goodness, I'm the head dorm parent for 25 House, which is an all-female dorm with girls from around the world. We're right next to the ski hill, so we've got a nice view of campus. So head dorm parent there. I coach girls varsity tennis in the spring, which is a lot of fun. And then I'm also a co-advisor to 8 juniors, and many of them have been my advisees since 9th grade. So I've kind of gotten to see them go through the process. So those are my main hats, outside of admissions.
Outside of admissions, right. And I'm Nora Dock. I'm the Director of Admissions and Enrollment Management. This is my 3rd year with Vermont Academy, and my family is all in at the school. I work in admissions. My husband is a faculty member in both the math and arts departments. He's head coach for girls varsity basketball. My daughter Amalia graduated 2 years ago. My son Cole is set to graduate from VA this year, and my youngest son Yehun will be joining as a 9th grader next year, assuming he gets his application done over break. My roles, I have been a dorm parent. I'm an advisor for 9th grade students. I have coached girls JV soccer and acted as faculty sponsor for our Knitting and Fiber Arts Club. And I love getting to know your children who you have trusted us with during this time in all these different ways. It's really lovely to work at a school that encourages students to be the best version of themselves. That's our school motto, be true to your best self. And we all show up every day and work to live that out together. Shall we get started, Kate?
Yeah, that sounds great. I think I gave you sharing access so you can own your visuals.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to launch into the official presentation, and then Caitlin will help us kind of answer questions as they come up. And then at the end, we'll make sure there's lots of space so that we can answer any ones that you've thought of in the moment. Here we go. Okay, so here's a beautiful picture of our campus in the fall. There are far fewer leaves on the trees right now, but it is still sunny and beautiful today. The first thing that I wanted to talk to you about was a couple different application timelines that we operate from. The first is sort of our newest option. We launched this last year and it was a huge success, so we're happy to offer it as an option for families again this year. It's an early action timeline. Our early action timeline allows families who really know that they love VA and they want to know as soon as possible whether it's an option for their family and their child to complete their application by January 1. And this is both an admissions application and a financial aid application. When families are able to do that, our office and our amazing admissions committee will review the application and issue both an admissions decision and a financial aid award letter by January 15th. So you would be notified on January 15th via email of the admissions decision and gain access to your enrollment contract, which would display the financial aid award. The great thing about this option is that you find out early whether Vermont Academy is going to be the place that you can call home, but you don't have to commit at that moment. You have until April 10th. It's not binding to sign your contract and make your deposit. There is a little bit of a benefit to families who decide that they do want to claim their spot right away and are able to do so by February 1. And that benefit is that you are able to lock in tuition rates for the 2023-2024 school year that will apply to when you join us in 2024-2025. If you complete your contract and pay your deposit after February 1, the tuition rates will reflect for the coming school year, and that is typically an increase of about 3% over the rates from the prior year. So that's the first option, early action. The next option is regular decision. This is another wonderful way to submit your application to Vermont Academy. In this timeline, your application would be completed by February 1. This is, again, both your admissions application and your financial aid application. The admissions committee and the financial aid committees get to work in reviewing the materials that you've shared with us, and you receive your admissions decision and your financial aid award by March 10th via email. Again, this is a timeline where you will have until April 10th to commit and sign your enrollment contract and submit your deposit. After February 1, if you decide that you didn't have a chance to apply by February 1, but you'd like to put your name in for Vermont Academy, we will accept rolling applications as space allows. So it's important to remain in close contact with our office if it looks like that might be a timeline that for whatever reason you can't make the February 1 deadline. Please keep in touch with us so that we can keep you informed about those available spaces. Okay. Those are the timelines that we're working with. How do we get started? One of the first things that we'd like to invite you to do is to take a campus tour and have an interview. Interview is a required step in our process. It's important to us that we get to know your child through the admissions process. We are an intentionally small school of about 215 students, and we really use the interview as well as the other pieces of the application to get a picture of what your student might be contributing to us when they come and join us. Our interviews are largely informal. So there is no reason to stress about it. It is pretty much an informal conversation where we will ask your child to share with us some of the things that they are most interested in. What are their motivations for coming to join a boarding school like Vermont Academy? And then to answer any questions that they might have about what that transition would look like. We also recognize that for some of us, and perhaps some of you on this call today, coming to campus is going to be pretty challenging. You may be living far away. You may not have the opportunity to travel to visit campus before the admissions deadlines. For those students, we do invite you to schedule a Zoom interview with one of our admissions counselors, and we can also arrange for you to connect with current students or faculty members in that instance. Excuse me. Okay, so campus tour and interview is one of the first things that we like to set up so that students have a chance to see our community firsthand wherever possible. Next is to submit your application. We accept applications through two main platforms, and you'll find those both linked on our website. The first is the standard application online. I would say that's the one that the majority of our applicants submit. It allows you to apply to multiple independent schools at the same time, and it also will show you specifically which forms are required by each school. So that is a really great way to get out your applications in a kind of convenient and time-efficient way. There's also Gateway to Prep Schools, which is another platform that we accept applications through. Again, that is one that allows you to apply to multiple schools at the same time. And there are links to both of those on our website. Next, we also invite you to submit your financial aid application. There are a few different financial aid platforms out there. The one that Vermont Academy uses is the SSS platform. You need to establish a family portal, create an account, and then submit the application as well as supporting documents. Some of the things that you may be asked to provide are a monthly budget of expenses, to identify the amount of resources that you have to contribute to your child's education, and then as well to provide tax returns if you're a family based in the US from the prior year. If you are a family based outside of the US and you'd like to apply for financial aid, there is a form on our website called the International Student Parent Financial Statement that asks for similar information But we recognize that supporting documents will vary from country to country. So each counselor will work with you closely to make sure that you're giving us all the information we need for our financial aid committee to review your documents and make an award based on the information we see. Now, the SSS platform is wonderful, and it does a really great job of using an algorithm to tell us what your family's estimated financial contribution would be. However, it's an algorithm. And algorithms sometimes are not adept at capturing the human aspect of your family's financial situation. So if you feel like the number that the algorithm comes up with is not possible for your family for reasons that weren't captured in the information that it requested, we do invite you to share that either directly with me or with your admissions counselor. This provides opportunities for us to have an ongoing conversation about what is going to work for your family. And that's really the approach that we try to take as an office in all areas of your admissions and your financial aid application process. You are more than just a piece of paper to us. You are a family that we have a relationship with throughout the application process. And we want to make sure that you are able to share with us every factor that you think is important for us to consider when we are making admissions decisions and financial aid awards. Okay, that's a little bit about the financial aid application. Somebody in the last webinar that I did asked if the admissions decisions and the financial aid decisions are made in concert. So will your admissions decision depend on your financial aid decision? And the answer is no. Our office has two committees and they review those applications in a holistic way in a parallel process. So it is not that, if your financial aid application is reviewed at the same time as your admissions application, and that would influence whether or not we offer you a seat at Vermont Academy. Next, we invite you to submit your application. In order for your application to be considered complete, we require the following documents. The first is the candidate profile. That largely collects demographic information, so information about your previous school, your siblings, your family, where you live, whether you will require an F1 visa, all of the things that kind of tell us the basic outline of who you are. We also then ask for student essays, and this is where we really get to know a little bit about what motivates you. The student essay questions are short answer, so you don't have to write pages and pages. And when we're reviewing them, we're certainly taking a look at your writing style. However, you're not being graded on your student essays. They are used primarily for us to learn more about what motivates you, what you think about, what experiences have you had that you've really learned from in the past. So some common questions that you could anticipate at the essays asking are, tell us about a book or a movie or a TV show that really inspired you. Why was that? What was it about? Tell us about a time that you really faced a challenge. What did you learn from it? How did you grow? One of my favorites is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Who did you receive it from? How have you incorporated it into your life? And then we also ask, if you were to describe yourself in 3 adjectives, what would those be and why? So those are some topics to start thinking about now as you're preparing for your student essays. But again, know that our primary motivation is to use those as a lens to learn more about who you are and what you might bring to our community. The parent statement, this was asked about in the chat before we got started. The parent statement provides an opportunity for parents to share with us what they think is most important for us to know about your students as young people, as learners. So where have they come from? Was their educational experience interrupted by the global pandemic? Have they faced really big challenges in the past, either at home in the family or in schools? Do they have an accomplishment that you're particularly proud of that we wouldn't otherwise know? Do they take care of an elderly relative? Do they babysit every day for the single mom down the street? It really gives you a chance to give us a snapshot of what you think your child's strengths are, and also to share with us opportunities for growth that you would like them to experience when they come to an independent school like Vermont Academy. We encourage parents to be pretty open and transparent in there. It is great for us to know as much about your student as possible when we're reviewing the application. We do require a school report. So if you are in high school in a grade higher than the US equivalent of grade 9, we will require that transcript to reflect all of the work you've done at the high school level. If you're applying as a ninth grader, we'd love to see your transcripts for grades 6, 7, and 8, or the equivalent in your home country. Very often you are asked to provide a current transcript, so a transcript that reflects work in progress. And I know that for some of our young people who live in other parts of the world, your grades may be determined by national tests that you don't have the score for yet. So in that instance, it's really important that we also get teacher recommendations. So a recommendation from your current English teacher and your current math teacher. That's required of all applicants. And it's a way for us to learn about what you are like as a learner in the classroom. Your teachers have the opportunity to share kind of what characteristics you display. They also get to share with us how you contribute to classroom culture. And those are things that are really important to us. So we love to see the wonderful things that your teachers have to say about you. If you do have a personal recommendation, perhaps from a coach or somebody who's a family friend or somebody you did an internship with or worked for, we invite you to submit that. We review applications holistically, and that means that everything you share with us, we will look at. And so we welcome you to share with us positive things that other people have to say about you, examples of your artwork, anything that you think provides a really good picture of who you are. And then lastly, there is an application fee that must be submitted through either the standard application online or Gateway to Prep. Our office is unable to view any of the wonderful materials you submit until that application fee is paid. So we definitely will need that piece in order to start the review process. There is the opportunity to submit optional standardized testing. Vermont Academy does not require any standardized testing of our domestic applicants. However, if you have taken the SSAT or the ISEE and you're applying for grades 9 and 10, and you're happy with your score, you're really proud of what you've accomplished, please do share it with us. We want to be proud of you also. Similarly, if you're applying for 11th, 12th, or a postgraduate year, and you've taken the PSAT, the SAT, or the ACT, and you're proud of that score, please share that with us. We are likely to be test optional for the foreseeable future. We have found that with our admissions review process and the ways that we engage with families throughout the application process, we learn so much about your students. And the scores are a wonderful complement, but they are not necessary for us to make a full decision. Next up, here we go. If you are a student who lives in a country where English is not your language of instruction, or if you are a student who lives in a country where English is not your first language or the language that you speak at home, you will be required to submit a standardized test of English proficiency. We accept lots and lots of types of standardized tests of language proficiency. We definitely accept TOEFL and TOEFL Junior. So if you have scores that you've taken within the last year from those tests, we are happy to receive them. We also accept the IELTS. Our preferred test these days is Duolingo. And that's for a few different reasons. The first is that it tends to be the most accessible globally. And by that, I mean, it is one that you can register for and take pretty quickly. The results are issued generally within 48 hours, and it tends to be a lot more economical than the other tests. The fee to register for it is pretty small. We've also found that it gives us really great information about your language proficiency. I think it's important to share that at Vermont Academy, we do offer English as a second language instruction, and there is no additional fee for that. We believe that it's an important part of your student's education, so it does not feel right to us to ask for a supplemental fee in order for your child to have access to a great education. In general, we are looking for students to come in with the equivalent of a CEFR level of B1. What that means is we're looking for the equivalent of an intermediate level of English. So can you have a comfortable conversation with a peer about your day and ask and answer questions about what you plan to do? Are you able to participate in a class in English? And that can be at kind of a base level. So to ask and answer and talk about topics in simple sentence structure. Our ESL classes are offered on assessed on a trimester basis. What that means is that some students will enter with ESL as part of their schedule. And then after a fall semester of living and learning in English all the time, they are ready to launch into mainstream classes. So you're not locked into ESL necessarily for the duration of the year. So if it is recommended for you, know that it's really recommended because we think it will help you to be that best version of yourself in our community. There we go. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that we are looking for in an application that kind of transcend those required pieces. When we are reviewing applications as an admissions committee, we're keeping an eye out for certain desired characteristics. Number one would be your academic record. We love it when a student comes to us with really great grades, and it's wonderful if that's been something that you've accomplished every term that you've been a student. However, we know that that's not always the case for every learner out there, and that sometimes students might have a semester or a year where outside circumstances led to lower than usual grades. We definitely review transcripts and academic records in the context of what you share with us. So if you are able to explain an off semester, we would love to hear what kind of happened there. But beyond that, we are also equally proud of students who have had a little blip in their academic record and have since that have demonstrated an upward trend. So if your math grade was pretty low, but you've worked really hard to raise it, we're going to be super proud of you. Especially if in your math teacher recommendation, your math teacher says, wow, this student came and asked me questions every day when they didn't understand things. They put in the time to study outside, and they were able to raise their grade by 10 points from the first semester to the second semester. Those are things that we really like to see. That tells us that you are able to advocate for yourself and put in the work to achieve your goals. We love to see that. Similarly, we like to see evidence of intrinsic motivation. And that means that we love to see that there is something inside you that propels you to achieve your goals or work towards goals. We want to see that if you play soccer and you were really motivated to make it onto your town's club team, you put in the work to get there. Or if you are really passionate about community service, you started a canned food drive in your neighborhood and connected with a local food bank to donate the things that you collected. Those are examples of intrinsic motivation. Similarly, we'd love to see curiosity. We want to know that there's something in this world that inspires you to ask questions, and that can really be anything. In the past, we've had students who are really stoked about building their own gaming computers, and they research all of the different processors and all of the different pieces that they could use to build the device that's best suited for what they want to do. So something in the world that lights you up and inspires you to ask questions. One of the most important characteristics that we're looking for is kindness. As I mentioned earlier, we are an intentionally small school. We have 215 students right now. We don't aspire to grow largely beyond that. And because, close to 90% of our faculty live on campus, it's really important that every member of our community is kind and is willing to be kind to one another and learn from one another's lived experiences. One of the first things that our assistant head of school really works to get every member of the community to make a part of their daily life and to be able to recite out of memory is that every member of our community is valuable, is worthy of respect, and most importantly, is viewed as an asset. And that's where being kind to one another really comes into play. We're also looking for students who have enthusiasm for new experiences. We love it if you come to us with a passion that you've had your whole life. Maybe you're a hockey player or a soccer player. Maybe you've been doing dance and theater your whole life. We're definitely going to celebrate and provide opportunities for you to continue in those pursuits. And we're going to ask you to try a whole bunch of new stuff. You have to be willing and enthusiastic about trying new things when you come to our community. We also want to invite members who are ready to be seen and known. Because we are a small school, because our faculty lives on campus, you are going to have adults involved in your life. Through the advisory program, you will get to know your teachers really well, both inside and outside of the classroom. They may be also your coaches and your dorm parents. At the end of each trimester, as a whole faculty, we gather in Chivers, our winter sports lodge, and we talk about each individual student and what they accomplished in that previous trimester. We identify future areas of support. We identify students who are ready to step into leadership roles. We think about ways that we can encourage growth in each student. So that's something that's really special and important to us as a faculty. And in order to accomplish that, we have to know you really well. So if you are a student who wants to be entirely independent and not have adults involved in your life, you will probably not be happy at Vermont Academy. But if you are a student who really wants to be seen and known and supported as you work towards your goals, it can be a really beautiful place to be a student. Again, students who are ready to explore and grow. Growing means taking appropriate risks. And that is, with your academics, as well as trying new things. So we are going to encourage you to work at your growth edge, to really push yourself, to try new things, to expand your learning, and to really take on new challenges. And lastly, we are looking for students who value community. We have 4 educational pillars at Vermont Academy that our entire school philosophy is founded on, and that you will see incorporated into academic life, residential life, our athletics, our performing arts. Those are community, first and foremost, a love of the land, ingenuity, and independence. And we are big on community. We have community meetings every Monday, community lunch every Thursday, advisory activities, grade level activities. Your dorm communities will have special events sometimes. You'll get to hang out and drink tea and make cupcakes with your dorm community, especially if you live in 25 house where Miss Wilkins is the dorm parent. So lots of different ways for you to be engaged. And we think that knowing how to be a responsible member of a community and a contributing member of a community is a skill that will serve you very well as you move above and beyond your high school experience. So those are some of the things that we are looking for when we are reviewing an application holistically. That's kind of the end of the official presentation. There's a couple more slides that talk about kind of what happens. You are welcome to contact us today to schedule your virtual interview or your on-campus interview. When you come to an on-campus interview, you will have the opportunity to tour campus with a current VA student. We have really wonderful student admissions ambassadors. They are involved in all different activities on campus. And wherever possible, we try and pair you with a student who shares some of your own interests. It's important to us that our student ambassadors lead those tours without a member of the admissions staff there whenever possible, because we want you to get the true, unfiltered, authentic experiences directly from students who are living it. We want you to feel free to ask whatever questions you have, and we want our ambassadors to feel free to share the totality of their experiences with us. Following the campus tour, you'll be invited to have an interview with a member of our admissions team. And then if you'd like to have a little bit more of an in-depth visit, sometimes we can arrange for you to shadow a student and sit in on a class or two while you're with us. For the Zoom interviews, we are happy to schedule those at a time that is convenient for your family. We know that many of you are coming from time zones where there's a pretty big time difference. So we're happy to offer early morning appointments and then later in the day appointments as well, so that you don't have to disrupt your daily life too much in order to connect with us. Okay, and now I think we have reached the questions portion. Miss Wilkins, what do we have that people are curious about?
Yeah, excuse me. I think a lot of them, I'll let you sip your coffee. I think a lot of them have been answered, some of them. I'm seeing in the chat, so extra points for you, Nora. Um, that the SSAT is not mandatory. We do accept the junior TOEFL. Um, Oh, here's an interesting question. So related to applying for financial aid. So you had said how the admissions application for like the student items and then the financial aid award are separate. In terms of they're not, you explain that piece, but are the financial aid, like is financial aid that is awarded January 1st or deadline versus February 1st, are those different at all?
That is a great question. So I will say, if you are an early action applicant, you are applying at a time where we will have the full array of our financial aid resources available. So you are essentially getting first crack at the pot of available resources. However, we do make sure that there is a portion reserved for families who apply on the regular decision timeline as well. Where things can start to really impact families is after that February 1 deadline. So if you are applying when we are in a kind of our rolling admissions phase, as space allows, that might be a timeline where we have limited financial resources available. And limited in the sense that we don't have our full pot. We will make sure that we inform you of that at the start of the process so that you know this is what we are working with at this stage in time. In general, we don't want any part of this process to be a surprise to our families. So it's really important that we have ongoing communication about expectations.
Thank you. And related to that, a chat question just came in about, families have questions, need some support as they're filling out either the application or the financial aid application.
Yeah. Each student has an admissions counselor assigned to them. And when you submit an inquiry form, you will then be contacted by your admissions counselor, kind of introducing themselves and saying, hey, I'm here to help. I would love to answer questions. You can always reach out directly to the admissions counselor with questions as you're navigating those platforms. If you have yet to have the opportunity to meet your admissions counselor over email, you can also reach out to our general admissions inbox, and that is the email address that's displayed on the screen right now, admissions@vermontacademy.org. When you email that address, we make sure that it gets to the person best equipped to provide you the information that you're seeking.
Thank you. And this is more about applying. The question came in, our son is currently in grade 10 in Quebec, and was suggested to do a repeat or a reclass of 10 in prep school for the fall. Is that a common practice? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So reclassifying is, yes, it is common. It is not uncommon for students who are transitioning from a different school environment, perhaps a different language of instruction, to reclassify when they join a prep school like Vermont Academy. The reasons for that can be many. Most often, it is so that a student can really focus on the adjustment part of coming to a new school. You may be kind of engaging in classes that have material in it that you're somewhat familiar with from your previous years, and that really allows you to focus on the other aspects of adjustment, cultural adjustment, language adjustment, all of those things. It is something that is pretty common in the prep school world because sometimes the workload and expectations in prep school are very different from where you're coming from as well. So it allows you to start off your journey putting your best foot forward in terms of academics.
Thank you. And then let's see, a question about for international students. How do international students kind of, are they able to build connections with students from the US? And what does that experience look like for both groups of students?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. So one of the things that I particularly love about our school community is that we think it's really important that we have students from other cultures and countries as a part of our student body. We believe that diversity of lived experience improves the experience of everybody in the community. When you get to sit side by side with someone who has had entirely different set of lived experiences than you have, and you're having discussions in classrooms, you're learning and growing from one another. And you're developing all of the skills that you need to be an empathetic person in this world, to be an informed person in this world, and to go out and make the world a better place. And that's really important to us. So currently we have about 26% of our student population are international students. And we define that as students who require an F1 visa to come study with us. So there's an additional handful of students who perhaps are US citizens, but grew up in a country outside of the US. There are some students who are the children of diplomats or other international business people who have grown up moving from country to country and culture to culture. Those students also have really amazing lived experiences that they bring to the classroom, but they don't necessarily fit our sort of definition of international student the way that we need it for different processes. We have an amazing Director of International Student Support, Mr. Adrian Diaz. He himself was an international student at Vermont Academy from Spain when he was in high school, and he had a life-changing experience and came back to us and now works as our head of residential life as well as our director of international student programs. He provides an orientation for international students before everyone else gets on campus. So as a new international student, you will be invited to come to campus a few days before other students, and that allows you to adjust to the new time zone, new foods, new climate. We take you out shopping to make sure you have bedding and some of the larger items that are not convenient to travel with. We give you a campus tour and make sure that you feel comfortable in the new environment before all of your new peers arrive, so that you are then able to focus on making connections and making friendships. Students are placed in most cases with a roommate. Your roommate is selected after you've completed a roommate questionnaire, and Mr. Diaz and his team will review the information you've shared, and they'll do their best to match you with a roommate who is a great complement to your specific habits and what you're looking for. In many instances, our international students are paired with a domestic student, or with if it's another international student, it would not necessarily be a student from your home country. And that's so that you can really maximize your learning experience. The ways that students form connections tend to happen pretty organically, although we do have structures in place. Every student is put in an advisory group. Caitlin and I have referenced that a couple of times. Your advisory group is typically around 7 students with at least 1 faculty member, and you meet 2 to 3 times a week during the trimester. That's a great space for you to form almost like a family within the larger fabric of the school community. Your fellow advisees may not end up being your best friends, but they are people who know you and who support you and who you can feel comfortable hanging out with. Additionally, there are dorm activities, grade level activities. Every student has to participate in an afternoon activity. Classes are small. So many times students are forming those connections very organically, as well as being supported by faculty and staff, making sure that if there is a student who we've observed maybe isn't making connections yet, that will be noticed. And the advisor and the dorm parents and other people who are the students' champions will work together to kind of facilitate finding ways for them to step into social situations where they can connect with other peers.
Very true. Thank you, Nora. As you're talking about that, I think about all of our international students making connections and going, for winter break right now. They're going
Yeah.
home.
Well, Ms. Wilkins, your dorm has a pretty international profile. Do you want to share a little bit about some of the different countries that are represented in your dorm?
Yes, I can. So we have 14 girls in the dorm right now. And it's a mix of students who are brand new to Vermont Academy and students who've, been here from the beginning of their, experience in grade 9. and some are new to boarding school and some aren't. Country-wise, we have the Czech Republic represented. We have Canada and Spain and Afghanistan and Uganda and all over the US. So lots of languages. My favorite pairing is I have two very boisterous young ladies from Spain and Canada, from Quebec, and watching them support each other. Nora, you can't help but laugh. Is just so much fun because they are thick as thieves and best friends and did not know each other before they started. And it's really fun to watch them adapt together. So
one of my favorite things to observe over the course of the year is how when an international student is, joining the community and making friends with lots of different kids on campus, and you see their American peers start to adapt little sayings in their international student friends' home language. I think that always makes me happy to see.
I was thinking too, we have, looking at our sibling pairs in the student community, having students who are, either twins or siblings who for home is, in another country, but they're here together in the community, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there haven't been too many questions coming in right now, but this is one I am getting a lot on the main admissions email, going back to working on applications over the break, and trying to nudge all those teachers, trying to make January 1 deadline. What happens if we cannot get all of our letters of recommendation in on time, whether that's January 1 or February 1?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I know can cause a lot of stress for families who are doing their best to get the pieces that they can control in advance of that deadline. Pieces like letters of recommendation and transcripts are sometimes outside of your control, and we as an office recognize that. As long as you are proactive in communicating with us that, hey, I requested it on this date, the entire school's on holiday break, they're not going to be back until January 10th. That's the earliest I could get it. As long as we have every other piece of your application and we know that those recommendations are in process, we typically can proceed with a review of the file and make an initial admissions decision. We will still require the recommendation when it's available, and that will become an important part of, should you choose to enroll at Vermont Academy, it is shared with your advisor and with your teachers so that they get a sense of who you are as a learner. So it is something that if you can't get it to us by January 1, and it might be coming a little bit after that date, please let us know. And wherever possible, we will work to accommodate that and without it delaying your process.
Perfect. I think that is all that we have, and we're right on schedule. We said we were going to aim for about 8:40, 8:45, so people can, keep going with their day and things. So that is all that we have. And I think that we can, Nora and I could be on here for a couple more minutes if other questions come up, but just thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. And hopefully this was helpful both for applying to independent schools in general and also getting a snapshot of who Vermont Academy is and what that looks like. So I'm going to send just a message in the chat so that you have our admissions email readily available. Please reach out. We're here today. Our office is open over the holiday for most of it, so don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to help, and that's the best part of what we do, is helping families through the process and figuring out what being a part of VA could look like for them. So
yeah. Thank you so much for logging in. Please know that we recognize what an honor it is for you to want to share your most precious resource with us, your child. We take that really seriously.